Hello, and welcome to Recapping with Delora
and Ashley.
Please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Recapping Podcast.
Also, rate, review, and subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast platform. We're on all the things.
We want to hear your thoughts on the movies and shows we review.
Leave us a comment on Apple Podcasts or our YouTube channel, and we will read them during the show.
Or reach out to us on social media. We love talking all things entertainment and pop culture with you.
Thank you guys so much for listening.
Thank you.
Hello, Delora. What's going on?
Hello. I'm great. How about yourself?
I'm excited because I am finally going to check something off of my to-do list that I have had for quite a long time, and that is swim lessons. I have been wanting to take swim lessons, learn how to swim forever, and I finally got signed up. Been on a wait list and everything. So I'm super excited, looking forward to it. But we're talking today about another sport. Basketball. Is basketball your favorite sport?
It has been through the years. Like, I'm really good at picking players and teams.
Oh, you be doing fantasy?
No, I have a couple of times, and I actually made it to the finals one time, but
okay.
I just got an eye for it. It's a sport that's been around me my entire life, more than football.
Well, we're playing basketball today, baby. Y'all remember that song? We're playing basketball because we got a 2-on-2. As I said at the end of last week's show, we are doing 2 recaps in one today. White Men Can't Jump remake, released on Hulu on May 19th, and Air, which was released theatrically back in April and is currently available to stream on Amazon Prime. Delora, we have not done a 2-for-1 since the holidays a couple years ago, so this should be fun. Let's start with this White Men Can't Jump remake on Hulu. Quick summary. 2 ballers, opposites who are seemingly miles apart, find they might have more in common than they imagined possible. This film is directed by Talmatic, who seems like he's making a name for himself with remakes because he recently did the House Party remake, which, I'm sorry, was trash.
But it definitely had the same feel to it. I noticed that for sure.
It's definitely a vibe. He definitely loves to write love letters to LA. And I think that he gravitates towards the things that spoke to him, obviously, in his youth and trying to, bring that to the next generation. I definitely enjoyed this way more than House Party, though. I will say that. So if you didn't like House Party, you're like, nah, give this one a shot. Cast. Sinqua Walls as Kamal, our boo. Jack Harlow as Jeremy in his acting debut. Tiana Taylor as Imani. Laura Harrier as Tatiana. Supposed to be my birth name. Hello, mother. Vince Staples as Speedy. What's good, Maurice? I could not get him as Maurice from Abbott Elementary out of my head this whole movie. Miles Bullock as Renzo, and R.I.P. Lance Riddick as Benji. Reviews. Rotten Tomatoes. Critics score 25%. Audience score a little bit better at 63%, and Google users a little bit better at 72%. Delora, what is your grade for the White Men Can't Jump remake?
This movie gets a C+ for me. It is fun. It's light. It's not bad. Unbearable to watch. There was decent chemistry between the 2 guys, and considering this being Jack Harlow's first film, he did a pretty good job. And I think his performance was going to make or break this remake because obviously they made this film for him and his rise, his stardom, Shout out to Tiana Taylor. I love seeing her do things. She's so great at everything. And oh my goodness, I did not know Lance Reddick was in this movie. So that was a bit of a gut punch when I saw him for the first time.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was fun, light, easy to watch. Perfect for a weekend. I'm here for it. How about you?
It gets a B- from me. And honestly, the only reason why I even put a minus on it is because it is a remake and it's not an original story yet again from this director. But that's not the cast's fault. That's not the story's fault. I actually really enjoyed this remake because I have to be honest, I went back and I rewatched the original. I don't really care for the original watching it with my eyes now. I don't know if I ever did because I was a kid when it came out and I remember it from that time. So I probably didn't understand much, but it didn't move me. So I was like, you know what? I actually really, really enjoyed this. To your point, Jack Harlow cracked me up actually quite a few times with this portrayal. It was funny. It was interesting. I felt like I enjoyed the depth that we got about both of our main two characters and the journey that they were on in this film. So I just liked it. So it's a B- for me. Let's get into the good. Did you have any strong thoughts or opinions when this remake was announced? And did you rewatch the original?
I did not have any strong opinions. I just thought, if anything, it was a smart business move for Jack Harlow to be associated with a quote unquote Black movie like White Men Can't Jump. I think it speaks to his goal demographic. I did not rewatch the original. I remember seeing it as a child, but it didn't really stick with me. But I also was interested to see what this film was about, since quote unquote race relations is a lot different than it was in the 90s, right? So how were they going to portray, things like this? And what's also interesting is, if anything, in the 90s, there would have been more white players, wouldn't it, than even today? Today, right?
Well, in terms of superstars, I mean, you had people like Larry Bird that, obviously made it seem as if, it wasn't a weird, strange thing. But I think when you're talking about just street ball culture, which is what the predominant theme is with both the original and the remake, you're not in the areas that he was hustling in, that the white character's hustling in. No, you don't expect to see necessarily this white dude, but to just completely doubt his skills was interesting. So let's move forward and talk about our two leads real quick, Kamal and Jeremy in this film. When we meet Kamal, it's a flashback to 2010 when he was doing interviews on ESPN and considered the top high school basketball prospect in the country. In the present, 10 years later, he's seen as washed up after a fight ended his NBA prospects. And he's playing pickup basketball games locally, working for a delivery company and struggling to make ends meet for his family. Jeremy, a former college player for Gonzaga, is battling injury with 2 torn ACLs and an addiction to pain meds, while also hustling those who judge book by its cover and don't think he can play, amongst a few other side hustles like that whole 30-day detox and his basketball training that he's doing. But he still has dreams of playing basketball professionally. So let's start with impressions. What were your impressions of our two leads? Let's start with Kamal.
With Kamal, my first impressions were that he's angry. And I say that because I'm like, what happened, right? You were on the fast track and now we're here. Like, what brought you here? And it's obviously something that has held him back ever since, because he was so popular as a high schooler. He's still getting recognized in everyday, errands and work. So it's like he was a phenomenal player, but what really prevented him from taking that next step into the big leagues? And then in terms of Jeremy, I didn't know what his deal was. Whatever it was, I knew he was a shit talker. I just didn't know how much of it was real. You know what I mean? So he's like, take my detox drink. I'm like, is this real? Like, I didn't even know how I felt about his meditating and all that. I'm like, is this gimmicky or is this something you found yourself, leaning towards
Right.
after lost dreams? You know what I mean? Those knees had me squirming. I'm
I
like, Lord,
know.
oh,
It looked
and you,
brutal.
and you want to risk it for a couple of $100s?
I kept wondering who's buying juice off the street. Like with his whole 30-day detox program, who
That
buys
part.
street juice? Not
That's
me.
exactly. Exactly.
But I guess I respected the hustle at least because he's like, hey, I'm gonna get it one way or another. Coming in with some yoga pants and his sandals and his socks and doing his thing.
You know what's interesting is he does have a legit contract with New Balance, and I almost wonder if he was like not allowed to wear like speaking of people who wear shoes, for contracts, thinking about Air that'll be coming up. I mean, obviously New Balance has gym shoes, but I just almost wonder if it's like what the politics was with that and his contract. So I don't know. Fun behind the scenes thoughts there.
For sure. They have their meet cute, as we call it in the rom-com world, where Jeremy hustles Kamal in a shootout. I love this quote from Jeremy where he said, under pressure, you don't rise to the occasion, you sink to your level of training. Loved that quote. Hold on to that.
Yeah, I wrote that too, actually. It was really good.
And he was very right when he was like, of all the things you would expect a white boy to do, you don't think we can shoot? Like, that's definitely this stereotype that they can at least shoot. So he had a point there. But even though Kamal loses, he ends up tracking Jeremy down, and we see them team up throughout the film to hustle other people. Not without incident, though. You said you feel like they had good chemistry. What specifically did you enjoy about their dynamic in the film?
It's that whole grumpy sunshine trope. I feel like Jeremy, even though him being, the loudmouth of the group, was slowly but surely able to crack into Maul's, hard exterior and expose him to some things he hadn't experienced before, a la meditating, a la drinking healthier juice. Like I even appreciated Jeremy taking the time to make a concoction that was at least palatable for Kamal's liking, things along those lines.
I thought that they had great banter. Like they had some moments where I just was cracking up between the go ahead and tell another black joke, Jeremy. What else you got? Because they were on the court and he was saying, you got jokes, you got stuff I can't even use. What else you want to say? Like
Right.
I felt like you could, again, the same as I said last week with our Little Mermaid microdose. I just feel like you could tell that there was a camaraderie that extended off screen because they did have such a great dynamic between the two of them throughout this movie. And I thought it was really funny. And they didn't shy away from, to your point, the differences of race, right? And even Jeremy's character is a little bit of a stereotype in just white people do yoga, white people do meditation, all these things. So it was just a yin and yang for sure between them. So one of the differences for me between the original and this remake is their significant others. In the original, Wesley Snipes' wife was trying to convince him to let her work. And Rosie Perez seemingly didn't have a job. She was just studying to appear on Jeopardy. And her dynamic with Woody Harrelson, in my opinion, wasn't great. What were your thoughts, though, on the relationships with Kamal and Imani and Jeremy and Tatiana?
I really did enjoy Kamal's relationship with Imani. I feel like there was a level of understanding there. Although him not showing up with the money was pressing on my nerves just a little bit. But they really did seem ride or die. Like they've been through a lot together and they still love each other and they will, see themselves through whatever life may come with. And so I really enjoyed it. And as for Jeremy and Tatiana, I thought they were cute. I felt like, again, with him, he was lying to her way too
Yeah.
much for my liking. And that's why I also called him a shit talker too, because it's like he'll try to talk his way out of anything. And I'm like, that's not conducive of having a healthy romantic relationship, especially one that you want to last.
I thought it was interesting too because you think about it, they make it seem like Jeremy has the more like centered, grounded, namaste personality, and that Kamal is like the hothead, doesn't have his life together tight, but in their personal lives, they're complete opposites, right? Kamal
Mm-hmm.
has a more solid relationship with his wife and is not lying
Yes.
to her about things. And to your point, they seem solid and supportive. And you got Jeremy over here lying his ass off to Tatiana about everything, even though she's busting her butt to work so that they can pay their bills, to live in the apartment that he has lived in since he was a child, you know, put her
Yeah.
dreams on hold. It was just interesting because I'm like, clearly, Jeremy, you don't have it together as much as you think you do, and y'all can learn from each other in
Right.
different ways because of that. So I like, though, that both of the female characters to me were more strong, more stable, had their own
Yes.
goals, their own ambitions. Because you had Imani, who was a hairdresser and wanted to open up a beautiful salon. You had Tatiana, who's a dancer, gets called to, choreograph for SZA. You know what I'm saying? They both were
Mm-hmm.
doing their thing. So I just like that they were a little bit more flushed out. RIP, as I said, to Lance Reddick. I wanted to chat for a minute about Kamal's relationship with his father. So when we first meet Benji, it kind of seems like he may be a stage dad. You know what I'm saying? Like another one of those dads who just isn't on the forefront, is possibly pressuring their kid to be a superstar, all of those things. But
Like
that
the Ball
scene,
brothers.
yes, exactly. That scene in the hospital between Kamal and Benji was like really needed therapy because his dad was not just some stage father, and he wasn't pushing him too hard or only caring about the money or anything like that. Like he was like, I've never been disappointed in you. I wanted you to play basketball because you loved basketball. What did you think about this like evolution, one could say, in like that dynamic between a parent and like a superstar, a potential superstar in this movie, that depiction?
Yeah. So watching the film, I felt like it took a while for me to really understand the true dynamics between him and his father. And first impression, I really thought his dad was overbearing and again put too much pressure on him, to where he popped the way he did. You know what I mean? Going as far as buying a freaking Escalade because he had so much faith that he'll make it to the leads. Like, I don't know how financially sound that was. You know what I mean? But again, I do think I think it was very wise, and I'm grateful that they had the conversation, to understand everyone's true motives.
Mm-hmm.
I but I also feel like his element probably helped humble him too to get to that place, because I feel like who knows where Kamal would have been. He would have probably still carried that internal anger with him much longer. I feel like if there wasn't that heart to heart.
Well, I also think it was his illness was a secret, right? So it was something that they were holding, and that's why that fan reaction was so severe. He already had his mom who like left them, and then
Right.
now my dad has MS, and he is battling it, and he's scared, and he's now I'm scared that I'm going to lose him, or that he's going to continue to get more and more sick. So I think that was also the thing. It was kind of like, let me try to, as a parent, overcompensate for my own fear as a potential that I'm not going to be around or be here for you, because I don't want that for you. You know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
it was so important to me when he said, I want you to have joy. Like I don't want you to be with your family and for them to not be able to see the sunshine that you have, only that chip you have on your shoulder. So like I said, to me, it was definitely felt like an evolution of that type of character and that type of parent, that there was more to Benji than met the eye in terms of like, no, you loved basketball. That's where your heart was. So I just wanted you to succeed because that's what you loved. That's what I hope for Beyonce. I hope that's what Mama Tina gives Beyonce. Because I don't know about Matthew. I can only speak for Miss Tina.
I mean, we have to remember Beyonce was a stage kid. Like, sometimes I don't know if people forget it,
I don't think
but
anybody forgets. The real fans, anyway. While Kamal and Jeremy choked at a 2-on-2 tournament, literally, because Kamal choked Jeremy out for
Crazy.
25K, they were able to pull it together along with two of Kamal's friends at the end and win a 3-on-3 for $500,000. Not
That's
without
a lot of money.
Girl, I was like, that's 125K a piece because it was ended up being four of them.
Exactly.
Not without Jeremy getting a hit in this time and taking one for the team, though, which was funny. They were like, oh, they're going to go kill him in the parking lot. You know, that was a cool white dude. Like, I was just starting to like him.
He said, I never been to a white man's funeral. Like, what?
They were hilarious. Even the scene where Jeremy comes to the birthday party for Kamal's son and he's introducing Tatiana, and the one dude, Renzo, sprinkles the Cheeto dust off his hands and still. I'm like, why are you still shaking her hand? They were hilarious.
But them being surprised that she's black, he was like, yo,
her name is Tatiana. Like,
yo,
is that a white woman's name?
It's a non-white name to me.
But see, I be thinking that sometimes, and then somebody will be like, but the origins are this. Because I used to say, isn't Desiree a black woman's name? And then I had a teacher named Desiree, and apparently Desiree is actually French or something like that. I was like, see, this is the product of going to school around black people. Is I be thinking everything is a black person's name because I don't know what y'all names are necessarily. So
funny.
I thought Tatiana was a black name. Okay. I feel like those two, his friends, reminded me of the two ladies from Praise This, like just this constant comic relief throughout the film.
They were dropping all the jokes.
Yes. To wrap the film, Kamal gets picked up overseas and eventually makes his way to play for the Los Angeles Lakers, while Jeremy is training NBA players like Tyler Hero. So both found success, not necessarily in the ways that they originally envisioned, because I don't think Kamal at the beginning of the movie had ever foreseen that he was still going to end up having a shot at making it to the NBA. And Jeremy, who wanted to get back into basketball, finally realized that, like, hey, I'm chasing something that is just not for me. Like, let me lean into my gifts. And one of my gifts is the training that I get to do. So I liked the wrap up that they had to this film. But what are your final thoughts on White Men Can't Jump?
I mean, it's always a great story of like controlling, for Kamal character in particular, the negative thoughts and focusing on the positive and asking yourself, what do you want? Like sometimes, you know, with life, you're able to make that pivot. But in his case, the pivot happened for him because of some of his bad decisions. But I love that he was able to, you know, find the path that works for him and his wife, because I was so happy to see Imani have her own salon up and running.
And she invested in her husband, gave him $5K.
Oof. That was a gamble, but, you know, again, I think it was a testament to the relationship, right? Like they ride or die. And then when it comes to Jeremy, I love that he was able to find a happy medium. He still loved basketball, but his health is no longer in jeopardy. And
he's not trying to do stem cells or any other experimental procedures.
And it's like, you take the word of your drug dealer, like
from the gym. You
haven't spoken to not nary one doctor.
Right.
But this is what you're going to do. Okay.
And then he was able to be honest with Tatiana and propose and, you know, all those various things. So it just seemed like he was able to get on the good foot with his two bad knees. So, happy for him. Mm-hmm. All right. My final thoughts are just, like I said, I really enjoyed this remake. I will probably end up watching it again because that's really how much, like, it just brings me joy. I chuckle both times watching it. So I thought they did a really good job. I hope Calmatic steps outside the box next time and comes out with an original screenplay adaptation, but we'll see. All right, Delora, let's move on to our second recap. Air, released theatrically on April 5th, currently available stream, as I mentioned, on Amazon Prime. Quick summary. Sonny Vaccaro and Nike pursue basketball rookie Michael Jordan, creating a partnership that revolutionizes the world of sports and contemporary culture. This film is directed by Ben Affleck. Cast Matt Damon as Sonny Vaccaro, Viola Davis as Dolores Jordan, Ben Affleck as Phil Knight, Chris Tucker as Howard White, Jason Bateman as Rob Stresser, Chris Messina as David Falk, Julius Lennon as James Jordan, Marlon Wayans as George Raveling, and Damian Delano Young as Michael Jordan. Much better reviews for this film. Rotten Tomatoes, 92% critic score, 98% audience score, 87% of Google users gave this film a thumbs up. Delora, what is your grade for Air?
Air gets a B for me. It was really good. I really enjoyed how they brought in a lot of what was going on at the time. So 1984 gave us all the cultural references from the politics to pop culture, honestly setting the landscape for this monumental deal. And what I also love about it, it is an aspirational story because it's like people doing things that has never been done before, and it ends up changing history. Mm-hmm. So with a Black woman at the helm of it. So I really enjoyed it. And I do think it is a white savior movie, though, to an extent, right? But
we're going to get back to that for sure.
But for the most part, it was fun. How about you?
This one is a B+ for me. I wobbled on my grade because I really enjoyed this movie when I went into theaters. Like, it was, to your point, aspirational, but also I think Michael Jordan is such a significant, iconic sports and pop culture figure that I still, when I watch, get goosebumps to see. So it's just, it sits different for me because I still do love Michael Jordan as a basketball player, still do love what he accomplished, all of those things. And so I know that I have favoritism, I guess I should say.
Well, Michael Jordan is my favorite basketball player of all time, period.
He's still mine as well, but I say it as in even like it just, there's just a weight to Michael Jordan that I know makes me have favoritism in terms of this project, right? Like even if the story may not even be that good, but because I actually love Michael Jordan, it makes it good. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just saying that I know that I have a favoritism because of who it's based around, not necessarily that the story itself would be as compelling if it was about somebody else that I didn't necessarily have that fanfare for. So I really enjoyed it, though. Gave me all the feels in the theater. I came away like, I forgot. Anyway, spoiler alert, let's get into the good of this film. As you mentioned, this film is set in 1984, and I also love that opening montage that showed politics, pop culture, technology, giving you a sense of the era and nostalgia for those, obviously, who would have lived through it. You saw things like Cabbage Patch Kids, Ronald Reagan, Hulk Hogan, old cell phones, Eddie Murphy,
Mr. T,
Run DMC. What stuck out to you?
Definitely, obviously, pop culture references. Mr. T and Jane Fonda and her workout videos. Obviously, the fashion and the technology. Yeah.
Princess Diana coming out with Prince William out of the hospital.
Literally, it was just super cool. But I also loved how they were able to set the stage of where Nike was in the shoe game, like in terms of market share, and that put things in perspective. And it's also interesting because, one, we were not born there, but we've also lived in a time where Nike has always been dominant, right? So to see the underdog story for this mega company was also a bit of a joy to see as well.
Yeah. Before we get into that piece in terms of where they were ranking at the time, I just wondered, were you familiar with the story and history of Michael Jordan's deal with Nike prior to the film?
I knew Michael Jordan had a special relationship with Nike. I did not know that this relationship started before he was an official rookie in the NBA. Again, Michael Jordan has been dominant my entire life up into like, his retirement or whatever. And I say that to say I grew up singing the song like Mike, want to be like Mike. So of course, Nike being the number one shoemaker in the world would be with the number one basketball player in the world. I was not aware of the origin of this story and the historical significance of it as well.
Yeah, I don't recall ever hearing much about this level of detail. I was thinking, like, did they reference this in The Last Dance? I think they referenced it, but I don't remember them really going into a lot of detail. But then again, there was so much that was talked about in The Last Dance, I may just not be remembering. But I think knowing that this was about this level of history also was really intriguing reason why I wanted to watch this film, because I was like, oh, this is something, how is there still something I don't really know about Michael Jordan? But let's get into the details you were talking about a little bit in terms of their market share. So to your point, Nike in our lifetime has been the dominant basketball brand, sports brand. But at the time, Nike was third. Nike had 17% market share. Converse was number one at 54%, and Adidas was number two at 29%. Nike was known as a brand for jogging, had athletes like Bruce Jenner on its roster. Converse had the big three, Magic Johnson, Julius Erving, and Larry Bird. Adidas was the cool brand, right? Due to Run DMC and breakdancers and hip hop, essentially.
Yep.
So I feel like now I must know the answer to this, but as a child of the 80s and 90s, do you recall what sneakers you wore?
I do not. If anything, in middle school, I actually wore K-Swiss.
I wore K-Swiss. I wore K-Swiss in elementary, fresh, all whites I had to have before school started.
All white. But when it came down to Converses, my mom did not like high tops for girls. So I didn't buy my first high tops until I was an adult. Yeah, I think I had Nikes, but I'm not a sneakerhead. So it wasn't one of those things where I had to get a particular brand. If anything, I had K-Swiss. I had a Puma moment at one point, and then I even owned some New Balances through the years. But no, I didn't have one particular brand growing up.
I definitely know Nike was most dominant for me, but I didn't realize until I was watching this and thinking about it for the sake of the recap, how much just basketball in general dominated my sneakers as a kid, right? I didn't wear Converse, Chuck Taylors. I wore Iversons. I wore even Grant Hill's sneakers. I think I had a pair of Penny Hardaways, possibly. Definitely Jordans. Me and my brother definitely did the line weights in elementary school, in middle school, to get the latest and greatest pair of Jordans. My brother is still rocking new Jordans to this day. I've kind of fallen off because there's so many shoes to wear as women, but I still love and have a nostalgia for Jordans for sure. Because to your point, again, the era that we grew up in, that was the thing, not just in terms of like pop culture in the world, but like in school, like what's cool is to have a pair of Jordans. Like it was clout.
I have never owned a pair of Jordans, and I don't know if I need to get a pair or not just yet. And I say that because I'm like, if I did get them, I don't even know which ones I would want.
Well, you can get the card and look and see. I'm just kidding. You can Google and see which ones you like best.
I know.
But I mean, they've only gone up in price, which is crazy.
I haven't spent that much money on a pair of sneakers ever. Yeah. You know, a pair of leather boots, maybe. You know me. I can't justify it yet, Ashley.
What's your favorite sneaker brand today?
What I wear a lot of Converse these days. And I have a pair of Adidas and I have a pair of Nikes. Like I am not loyal to any brand.
I didn't realize into this movie that Nike had bought Converse in 2003. So I was like, even when I'm wearing Converse now, I'm still wearing Nike. Because to your point, the two dominant sneakers in my closet are Nikes and Chuck Taylors. And I mean, there's other like variations in there. Like I said, being a grown woman, you have so many shoes in the toolbox now. But for sure, in terms of just pure sneakers, like I cannot tell you when I bought a pair of Adidas. Like sometimes I like Adidas's clothes, but very rarely have I been like, I want to wear Adidas shoes.
My first pair of Adidas is Ivy Park, Beyonce.
And now that collab is over. So
And now it is over. My friend who's a personal stylist, she recommended that I consider getting shell toe Adidas. So I told her I would consider that.
well, it's
Because,
funny.
I was going to say I work in tech. So, like, even though I'll dress professional, I can still rock some cool kicks.
Oh, for sure.
You know what I mean? And
Sneakers have
so,
become so common in terms of like
yes.
dressing up, dressing down from that perspective. Like guys go to weddings now and wear a full suit with sneakers. So it's not a taboo thing anymore for sure. But a
Right.
lot of the older like styles to me are popular again. Like even the original like look of Reeboks and stuff are popular again, which
Mhm.
I don't gravitate towards, but
Me either.
nothing is ever new under the sun for the most part. So when these kids today are rocking
Exactly.
things, I'm like, we had those. We wore
Calm
those.
down. Calm
Exactly.
down.
Exactly. So this film really focuses on the Nike basketball division, which was struggling and they were all on the brink of being fired, honestly. The strategy meeting that the Nike team had to discuss potential players to sign was so interesting to remember who came out in the same year: Akeem Olajuwon, Charles Barkley, John Stockton. But Michael Jordan was projected to be the third pick in the NBA draft and was therefore out of the price range of Nike because they had a budget of $250K to spread across 3 players.
Yeah, I have to say, with looking at Nike at where they were in 1984, I forgot people just buy running shoes. Like, you know what I mean? I'm like, oh, that's a thing. I guess.
Marketing is so much more influential than I think I ever gave marketing credit for because
Mm,
it is what we live and die by in terms of
yeah.
like culture. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? Like to think that before Nike was only known as a jogging company blows my mind.
Exactly.
When I saw the Nike Cortez, I was like, yeah, I have a pair of Nike Cortez, but I also have 4 pair of Jordans. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
it's just fascinating. It's a fascinating thought and a fascinating look at what could have been had it not been for certain decisions like Sonny Vaccaro, right? Because he was dubbed at one point in the film as the Mr. Miyagi of high school basketball. And he had very strong opinions and very strong instincts. As I said, Michael Jordan was supposedly out of their price range, and Michael was dead set on signing with Adidas. He didn't want to take a meeting with Nike. But after watching Jordan's 1982 game winning shot, he wants to bet their whole budget on getting him,
Mm.
despite the doubts and the negotiations, both internally and externally. Now, obviously, hindsight is 2020 for us. We know what comes to pass. But Sonny is willing to bet his whole career on this decision. Do you think that was wise?
I mean, with great risk comes great reward. I feel like what it would have been like to be Michael Jordan to have so much hype his entire life. Like, or just even being a parent of a child that's so gifted that you're literally turning down these major companies who are just dying to have your son be the face of their product. It is just, man, it's fascinating. It's fascinating. I want Mrs. Jordan to write a book. We talk about Tina Knowles, but I want to know what it's like to just, Mike is insane with his level of competitiveness, but after the last
World
dance, but
renowned, world renowned. But that was another
but
thing too. If you think about it, Michael Jordan was not as revered initially as even like LeBron James was coming out of high school or Kobe was
correct.
coming out of high school. Like he had to
Right.
prove himself.
And yes, but he still had that same kind of weight. And I feel like it's because of him that people like Kobe and LeBron, they had all those indicators to prove like, oh, they are meant for greatness.
Well, I say that to say, too, he had to have more of a confidence, and his mother did, even in himself, than some people
Yes.
would have at the time, because they did not know yet what he was going to be fully capable of. That's why I mentioned it, because, to me, one of the overarching themes in this movie that I just love is know yourself, know your worth, baby. Between him and his mother.
Well, I feel like there was some faith in Michael, just based off of the simple fact that with that video that Sonny found of, you have this coach who is, you know, looking for his championship, and you give it to the freshman, like,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know,
I'm not
you got
doubting
some.
or negating what you're saying about there being some. I'm just saying that was even an extra hurdle for him at the time, to be like, just in case y'all didn't think that I was going to do everything I needed to do, let me tell y'all or show y'all with what I'm asking for in this deal ultimately, as to what my worth truly is and is going to be. By forming a relationship with Michael's mom, Dolores, as well as in real life his friendship with George Raveling, who coached Michael in the Olympics, Sonny was able to convince Michael to at least take a meeting with Nike. Michael's agent was livid. I really enjoyed the portrayal of David Falk by our guy from the Mindy Project.
Yep. He's such a great actor.
He is. And he was so crazy in that initial conversation with Sonny after he went and met with Dolores in person. I was like, how many takes did it take for you to get out all those lines of vitriol that you had?
It was ugly.
It was. That story from George Raveling about MLK's speech was amazing and true, by the way, in case anyone had not done a quick Google search. He really does have the I Have a Dream speech. Michael Jordan's...
and he turned down $3 million.
He sure did. Michael Jordan's one stipulation for this film is that Viola Davis had to play his mother. What'd you think of Viola's portrayal?
And that's on period. I mean, she's Viola Davis. Viola Davis, Viola Davis, Viola Davis. Like, she did what needed to be done.
It hinged so much on the gravity of her portrayal, too, because we did not get Michael Jordan. Like, they did not focus on Michael Jordan. So the gravity of her portrayal and of her relationship with Sonny is what made the movie worth watching, ultimately.
I actually love that aspect of the movie. The fact that we did not get a full face shot of a young Michael in the acting form. Obviously, we saw a lot of the flashbacks of his, illustrious career. And one of the things that also makes Jordan so dynamic is, again, we lived in the time where he played and dominated and was the true star of the NBA. But the fact that he was able to retire and his shoes still have value, you can't make this stuff up. You talked about having Grant Hills and Penny Hardways and all the other shoes. Who still has a shoe that is relevant outside of them playing?
Michael Jordan's shoes not only still relevant, it has increased in value. Those shoes are only more expensive for this generation who has never gotten a chance to see him play outside of footage. So for sure, I mean, what they did and what they created ascended about him just being a basketball player. It became a cultural staple in and of itself, which is amazing. According to the real Sonny, though, he didn't actually meet Michael's mom in the flesh until the official Nike meeting in Oregon. It had only been phone calls. Do you feel like Howard White, portrayed by Chris Tucker, was used as a token Black person in the room during that meeting? Because I felt like that a bit when I saw it in theaters.
1000%. It was like one of those things where we are talking to predominantly Black people, so let's have a Black person on hand. Thanks.
Yeah, even when it started, they were like, "Where's Howard? Where's Howard? This is awkward. Where's Howard?" Like, y'all needed him to come in and smooth it out.
Even
real quick.
His conversation was so old folks Black conversation. Like, I'm like, oh, he's laying it on thick too. Got it.
And he's still working for Nike, according to the post film information that they displayed. What do you think ultimately sold Michael and his family on Nike? Was it the pitch? Was it the shoe? Because damn, I love the Jordan ones. They are sexy. They are.
think what sold the family was his ability to be number one, to be the star and to have real focus. I love the conversation Sonny had with Dolores because he told her to ask Adidas who's going to make the final decision. He asked her to ask Converse, is he number 4 or is he going to be able to move up to number 1? I feel like his ability to be number 1 and be the flagship star helped a lot.
Yeah. And it's also obviously the deal that they inevitably got. The historical move for a percentage of the gross revenue per shoe, possibly my favorite scene of the entire film. As I said, know yourself, know your worth. I didn't even realize the historical precedent he set until I saw this film. Mm-hmm. That's amazing. I also didn't know about the percentage of white for sneakers, that rule that the NBA had at the time.
Yep.
Appreciate Nike taking it on the chin for that. Because like I said, the ones are a sexy, sexy, sexy shoe.
The other thing that I really enjoyed about this film is they kind of did a lot of over-explaining, even in the context of the conversations in the film for today audiences. So I didn't know Adidas owner's relationship with Nazi Germany.
Girl. Adolf?
Woo. Girl.
Took me
aback. They even went as far to talk about where did the Just Do It come from and the iconic swoosh. Mm-hmm. So I love those tidbits that was like sprinkled throughout the film.
For sure. It was great from a historical perspective to get this film told in this way, especially for those of us who, like I said, grew up with like this love for Michael Jordan as an athlete and for what he meant like in culture at that time. And the rest, as they say, is history. So in an article from Vanity Fair that I read in prep for the recap, I was fascinated to discover that Sonny was fired from Nike 10 years after this in 1994. Yep. And he was investigated by the damn FBI for corporate espionage.
Oh, that's funny.
Girl, he worked for Adidas next and signed Kobe. Hello.
Yep.
Almost signed LeBron to Adidas. But Adidas didn't deliver on the $100 million deal they had promised, so he quit. He also was instrumental in that NCAA decision or ruling about players being able to start making profits from their name and likeness. Historical. Mm-hmm. What a career.
Absolutely.
I have a final question for you. I was going to ask you about how you felt about not seeing the actor who played Michael, but you kind of mentioned you felt like that was for the best. And I know Ben Affleck in doing interviews about this film said that he felt if they had, it would have taken people out of the film because Michael was such a larger than life person. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But let's go back to what you were saying about the white savior trope. Even though we enjoyed this film, even though it was great history and great knowledge, ultimately, was this film a love letter to Michael Jordan or a whitewashing of a moment in his iconic career?
That's a big question. I mean, Matt Damon's the star, so I feel like it was from his perspective. Was it whitewashing? I don't think it was necessarily whitewashing because white people were instrumental in this deal, right? I feel like if they wanted it to be more about Michael Jordan, I think there would have been a little bit more screen time for Viola Davis. I feel like what she was able to accomplish in the film was meaningful, but the screen time belonged to all the dudes at Nike, you know?
Based on how they decided to tell this film, I understand why it focuses on who it focuses on. But I also think that had Ben Affleck and Matt Damon not been producers and directors and stars and all of that, there could have been another way to tell the story that definitely would have been much more inclusive of the other folks who were also pivotal. Because like I said, George Raveling, Michael Jordan has been unequivocal apparently about the central role that he played in this deal, and yet we only see him in one scene in the entire film, right? Mm-hmm. So there were significant factors and significant people who played a role in this, but this was the perspective they chose to go with. So I think it's a fair commentary on the film that I've heard about. But obviously, this is a story that Matt Damon and Ben Affleck wanted to tell. So
right.
it is what it is. Any additional final thoughts on Air, Delora, before we wrap our 2-on-2 recaps for today?
I wanna be like Mike. Wanna be like Mike. It was a good ride, and bravo to Michael Jordan getting another project in the last 5 years. Centering him. It won't be the last. So
I was just gonna say, I'm actually, when I watched this, I was like, who's gonna make the Michael Jordan film though? Who is going to ultimately create a film based just on his life period? Are they gonna make one for Kobe? Like, especially now that Kobe has passed. Like, we talk so much and we get so many of the biopics about singers, and we just did the Whitney Houston, but I'm like, are we going to get one for some of these iconic sports figures? Like, is Serena Williams going to have a biopic in our lifetime?
I want one for Magic. They kind of do this series, but that wasn't officially authorized.
Yeah, on HBO Max.
Yeah. No, that's a great question. You know who else I want? I want Arthur Ashe. He has one of my favorite quotes of all time. Start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. I have it on my wall.
I think that would be a great one too, just because he was not of our generation. He preceded us. So there would be so much to learn about Arthur Ashe.
So dominant in the sport and so significant in social issues and speaking out. Like, that would be just A1. I mean, we got Ali, so I think that one of the last great athlete biopic?
The last one maybe that I've seen. I mean, you're about to have, or you do have, the George Foreman movie that I think it's already come out, but I haven't watched it. So I think that's the last one I can think of. But again, I feel like I don't get it as much with like these big sports figures, at least that I'm thinking of off the top of my head. So I would love to see some of these big sports figures like have a comprehensive biopic.
But does that mean Mike needs to make a freaking memoir?
I don't know. I don't know if he needs to have a memoir. Tiger's story is going to be crazy. His movie's going to be the craziest probably of them all. Like, they need a documentary series. Like, they already had the one documentary, the 2-parter, whatever it was that I watched. They would need some time to deal with Tiger. He's lived a life, honey.
Not time. Oh,
he has lived a life. All right, Laura. All right, guys. Thank you so much for sticking with us for this 2-on-2 game we played today of some basketball features. White Men Can't Jump, as I mentioned, is available to stream on Hulu, the original and the remake, as well as Air being available to stream on Amazon Prime. Hope you enjoy. All right, Delora, what you got this week for Hidden Gems?
That's a great question, Ashley. It's been a busy weekend. And so I have a song and I also have a movie I would like to remind our wonderful listeners to take a look at because we recapped it. Hustle. Since we're talking about basketball, we recapped it last year. Actually, close to this time last year, June 2022. We love a good basketball film. Check out our recap starring the great Adam Sandler. A lot of cameos, NBA cameos in that film too. There definitely weren't as many cameos in White Men Can Jump as I thought there would be. But yeah, check out our recap of Hustle. And I have a song. It's very popular on social media, but it is one thing about me. I grew up loving a good guitar singing songwriter. So like, I'm thinking 1,000 Miles is one of my favorite songs before it became popular, a la White Chicks. And what was the girl that everybody mixed? So that was Vanessa, and
Carlton.
People would mix her up with Sarah. If I just breathe in and everything's okay, okay. Anyway, this is early 2000s, y'all. This young girl, her name is Lizzy McAlpine. The song is called Ceilings. Very moody. It
Oh, is it Sarah
rose.
Bareilles?
No, I know Sarah Bareilles.
Okay.
Melissa Branch. That's who I'm talking about.
Ah, okay.
There we go. Who I
Michelle.
also
Michelle Branch.
Michelle Branch. But I love me some Sarah Bareilles, King of Everything. Anyway, Ceilings, gorgeous, gorgeous song. Starts off very slow, very low, and it ends in this beautiful crescendo. It is moody. It's everything. And you probably heard it speed up on social media because these kids apparently have short attention spans. So,
Don't we all?
check out that recap of Hustle. Again, one of our 2022 recaps, and this new song called Ceilings. How about you, Ashley?
All right, I have two hidden gems today. The first one, I think I had seen somebody, maybe Lena Waithe or somebody post this or talk about this on social media, but it's Being Mary Tyler Moore, a documentary on Max, as HBO Max has now been redubbed. I didn't realize how little I actually knew about Mary Tyler Moore until I watched this. So much about her professional journey, but also about her personal life and her personal journey through 3 marriages. And unfortunately, the passing of her son and just so many difficulties and things that she went through, as well as just being a trailblazer, you know, as a woman in television. So you had various women, from comedians to actresses and folks, speaking during the documentary, and just, you know, like I said, getting a more inside glimpse at her life. So if you are a fan of Mary Tyler Moore or just in a documentary type of mood, I'd say give this one a watch. My second hidden gem is Platonic on Apple TV Plus. This is a new series starring Seth Rogen and Rose Byrne as old besties who reconnect following Seth's divorce. It is funny. It is a bit ridiculous, but if you like kind of the Seth Rogen brand of comedy, which I do, I think you'll enjoy this series. You know, Rose is basically playing the straight-laced and Seth is kind of playing the slapsticky, you know, doesn't have his shit together type of character. So interesting, work well together, not married like they were in Neighbors, but still have really good chemistry. So that is Platonic, available on Apple TV Plus. And that is it. That is all. Guys, thank you so much again for sticking with us. Feel free to check out our hidden gems. Feel free to check out these features. And we will be back. Can't wait to chat. Be blessed.
Bye.